Be bold. Be brave. Be extraordinary. Be vulnerable. Be real. Be curious. Be true. Be you. Welcome to Trusting Your Gut with world-class energy intuitive Katherine McIntosh, a show designed to awaken you to enjoy the process of evolving, have fun along the way, and learn to listen to those silent in-between moments. You are the expert of your own life, and nobody knows more about the next steps to take in your journey than you. So please, listen to your gut and discover what's waiting for you to explore. Here is your host, Katherine McIntosh.
All right, my magical friends. So I am so excited for today's show. We are doing our first ever interview with the amazing Tracey Watts Cirino. And I'm going to tell a little moment about what this show is about, which is trusting your gut. And Tracey and I had the privilege of being on a weekend workshop with Jack Canfield and Patty Aubrey, and we broke out into groups, and I met her and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to know more about this woman. I had no idea. And I reached out to her on Facebook and just said, I loved your energy. Thanks for connecting. I don't remember exactly what I said. And then later on in the workshop, she was like presenting her story, and I started to cry because I was like, of course. And so again, trusted my gut, said, I'd love to have you on the radio show. And Tracey's story is quite impactful and really phenomenal. And I think it speaks to what it means to follow your intuition, to trust your gut, despite how crazy it might feel, despite how unprepared we feel in those moments when we want to ignore our gut downloads and our intuition. And so I'm really excited to bring her on because not only is she bubbly and alive and has this great energy, but she also trusted her gut to build a way of living, write 5 books, has an incredible podcast that's been #1 for a while. And I think she has a story and a message to offer us that is quite inspiring. So Tracey, I'm so glad to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much, Katherine. It is an honor and privilege. I had so much fun when we connected in the workshop. And it was one of those interesting things. A few weeks leading up to Breakthrough to Success, one of the people that are working on the Train the Trainer with I think it's Andrea that I talked to. She was like, would you be open to talking about the positive impact Jack and Patty Aubrey have had in your life? And I was like, all day, every day. Where do I go? Where do you want me to be? Because I love them so much. So it's so funny that I would meet you there in that amazing group. So the thing that is most interesting is that you and I have really built our life in this journey on following our intuition and trusting our gut. And that's literally how we got connected. So thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Yeah, I'm so excited to see what we create.
Yeah.
And, if you guys are listening, buckle up because I don't know where we're going to go, but we're going somewhere. So I would love actually, Tracey, if you could share your story about being a hairdresser and kind of that aha moment and where you were in your life. And, we see you now and it's like sunshine and rainbows. I know it's not always like that, but I'd love for you to just give us a snippet of your journey and what was that moment for you when you were called to play bigger and yet where you were in your life, there was like a leap of faith required.
Well, it's really interesting because the reason I ever went into hairdressing is actually what I wrote about in one of my books, Women Who Shine. And when I was really young, like 12, I had all my hair fell out. It was self-induced because of stress and not having the tools that we have now, and really being able to process negative, feelings and thoughts, emotion, just things that pop up. Now there's a ton of resources. There's tools. There's people like Katherine. There's people like me. Like we're out in the world helping spread this stuff. But when I was 12, like it was nothing available. So I shoved it down and had some skin issues and ended up like looking like a hairless cat. I mean, just to be honest. And if it was today, I would have photos to really show you, because I'm like that person that I would, share. I just don't, I don't have them to share, but I used to have really thick, dark hair. And when this happened, it, I scarred myself in a way that, I've always had really fine hair ever since this moment of when it's never come back fully. But it was through the process where you think you're at your darkest moment where I discovered that, oh, well, maybe I do have a piece of beauty. Like when I did that to myself and lost all my hair, I was like this detachment piece of, oh, yeah, maybe I was kind of pretty with hair. Like it made you start to think like, okay, I needed that. And through the process of healing and learning how to bring it back and just deep dive research, and I had to get out encyclopedias because AOL wasn't even a thing yet. So what's really crazy, but I learned a lot about beauty and hair and making things come from the inside out. So it just kind of became this thing where it was like, oh, you have some natural skills here. So, okay, well, the thing that was most appealing to me was freedom. And so because I had natural skills, I had gone through this, and people saw that I came back from losing my hair and figured out a way to grow and, still feel pretty, I guess. It just kind of changed some things where people started saying, oh yeah, you're the hair person. So I got my license at 16 because
Wow.
it was like this thing. And then I started doing really well in the freedom of having your own money. When I was from a very poor family, it was just okay. And I just thought I was going to get my license so that I could have a better paying job in college. I just knew I didn't want to be in debt. I wanted that freedom. And then I started going to college for psychology, and I was really busy, like cranking it out in the salon. I was doing really well at 18 years old. It was crazy. And I was like, oh, I thought it was going to be harder than this. And it was actually not. I was showing up for people, telling them what they needed to use, following my intuition. And I started growing. And then I got really scared because I kind of started making a lot more money than people around me. And then it was this whole paradigm shift of stuff. So then I started working for a product manufacturer. They were like, well, do you want to teach what you've been doing in the salon? I'm like, I'm just telling people what works. Like, if I don't have a client, I stand in the front and say, hey, what are your struggles? And then I'm like, oh, this works really good for thick hair. Like, I don't think I have a magic formula. I'm just asking people what they need. And they were like, no, that's a magic formula. You need to come teach this on stage. I was like, oh, okay. So then I went and got a briefcase. I don't know why I thought I needed a briefcase. I got a briefcase. And I remember, Mom, we have to go shopping for like fancy clothes. I thought I had to be like fancy. And so I was going to school and that in parallel. And then they were like, do you want to do the New York hair show? And I remember I was like 19 at this point. And I was like, take a midterm or go to New York and teach at a hair show. I was like, yeah, I think I'll put school on the back burner. And so I just followed my intuition and started what I call getting on the job training, because I learned so much more about the way people think, how they show up, the psychology, all the stuff. So interesting. But at school, it was so boring how it was being presented. But it was so interesting to experience it firsthand.
I love that story for two reasons, and a couple of things I'll say. So one, I truly believe that every woman in the world should shave their head at least once. Because I believe that when you strip away, a lot of women really have this identity with their hair, and they get self-conscious if they don't have it, or if their hair doesn't look good, or whatever it is. And I spent a few years of my life with a shaved head, and it was the moment that I first thought in my entire life that was actually beautiful. right? And it was taking away the hair, taking away the identity. So that's an aside, is that I truly believe that if you want to grow and evolve as a human and as a being, as a woman, and men too, but as women in particular, if you shave your head, it's a life-changing experience where actually you'll probably discover beauty inside yourself you've always avoided or ignored. But the second thing I want to say, and I think this is really powerful, is that women in general tend to ignore the thing that comes the easiest. So you were presented with, no, this is a magic formula. And you're like, this is obvious to me. This is so obvious that, of course, I would share what works with my clients. And I think that's a message to anyone listening right now, because it's the thing that comes the easiest to women, the thing that is, of course I would do that. Of course like, that's the thing where our gifts lie and our magic lies. And so I'm wondering if you can just say a little bit more about that, and what was your experience in, like, oh, right, this is a magic formula. I totally took it for granted because of course it's something I would do.
Well, I think that has always come in more layers, right? Um, as I learned different things, then I would go, oh, if you think that it's going to work, it actually does. And if you complain that it's not working and that nobody wants it and that I suck and you're so awful and oh, you're ugly, if you start saying all these horrible things to yourself about it, that kind of is how you feel about it. So this happened in layers throughout just different stages of life. And the more I would focus on doing what felt right and following, like trusting myself, like, oh, okay, I guess everybody doesn't get that. It was like, oh, okay, maybe there is a magic formula. And then I developed like really keen observation for how people process stuff, where I would like sit back and just, tell me more, tell me more. And that was how I really started to realize that it's so much more than what we can do on the surface, right? It's so much deeper. And it really is connecting with people in a way that allows them to feel special, to feel seen and heard. And that is something that has always come naturally to me. Um, but I also have always been told, like, who the blank do you think you are? So it was always managing those two messages, like, wait, am I off base here? Am I too much? Am I not? So once I decided, oh, it's just that there are people that aren't ready for all of that. So I could surround myself with people that welcome that and
Mm.
that love that. Then it appears like some type of superpower instead of enough, stay back. So it just is about, like, Trace, read the room.
Yeah, which I love. And so, because there is that moment, I think, in successful, like when people have a success story, there is that moment in their lives in which they awaken to realizing that the thing that comes most naturally to them is actually the thing that will be the path, if they choose it, to a quite a successful way of living. And so when you realize that thing that was so easy for you was actually your sort of doorway into not just being a hairdresser, but then I'd love for people to know that you went on to create all these magical things in the world that have to do with hair and beauty, but wasn't just being behind a chair and connecting one-on-one with people. So what was that moment for you of realizing that that was a superpower?
I think that was like much later. I think for the longest time I thought, "Oh, I'm just a really good teacher." Like I could break things down and make them simple. Whether it was, foods that would support a youthful, glow to your hair and skin, just anything like that when coming back from the hair loss piece. And then over time, I had to get more comfortable speaking on stage. And it was funny because I would get hired to talk about color and cutting and all this advanced skills. And eventually it was like, well, we just want you to talk to us all day about business and life skills. And then it was like, oh, and then you just have this whole panic attack of like, oh, I'm stepping out from behind the, so it was like never a straight shot for me. It would always have come in waves, like where, okay, I had to do this, and then this came back in and presented a new skill, and then I go and hide for a little bit, and then I come back and try something else. So when I was in the salon space, we were running a very successful salon company, but we were known for growth. Like, you did not come to us unless you wanted to learn life skills, professional development. So we were really known for like the self-help side of this. And people would want it so badly. Like, I want to be part of that positive energy. I want everything that's about. But when they entered into the program, they would then go, oh, but I have to do the work. And then it didn't look so glamorous. So there was a struggle sometimes with explaining to people that this is kind of like, you can't hire someone else to do your push-ups for you. You have to do the work yourself. And I realized for years and years of me coaching and mentoring people through this, that I was still playing small. I had always dreamed that I would be a New York Times bestselling author. I had this dream when I was 9 years old. And then I failed 9th grade English because it was boring. And it wasn't aligning with my creativity because it was all about grammar. And for years, I told myself the bad story, like of shame, where I'm not good enough to write. Nobody cares what I have to say. You can't do it because you failed English, and just shut the lid on it. And then one day it presented again. How can you be teaching people about following their hopes and dreams when you have buried a dream so deep that never gets any notice? And I had to unpack that and work through the stuff and realize that, wait, we had developed some really amazing training programs, curriculum, things that made us stand out, but I was still playing small. And that's where sort of the development of Beyond Common, the 12 essentials to success in life in the workplace, is taking these huge concepts that used to overwhelm me from a success standpoint. Like, when could I possibly arrive like that big guru? Like, oh, one day when, instead of realizing when we stay present in the moment and trust that we are doing what's best for us, instead of hiding and shoving it back in, that's when everything shows up. And you're always on this path to becoming a better version of yourself. Like, once that started, then it's like, oh, you know what? I live in this day and time for a reason. Yes, they do have good filters. We talked about this earlier. Yes, we do have good technology filters in the world. Yes, there are people that can edit stuff for you. And you know what? There are a lot of people that really care about what you have to say, and you are going to be able to help millions of people if you trust and just show up. So when I started adapting that in my own life and not playing small, then everything started aligning. And now we're been blessed to say that we have 5, #1 international best-selling books. I've since sold my business, and I have the podcast Beyond Common Business Secrets. And we've been blessed to move into the top 5% of podcasts ever in the history. And I think it's just because of being consistent and being really like showing people all the behind the scenes. Like, I don't edit stuff out when we mess up, like we mess up. And it's like, you can see in the past 2.5 years that we've been doing it, it evolves and it's different. And I never in a million years envisioned that selling the salon as the backdrop would ever happen. That's not what I thought. And I kept pushing and fighting, thinking I had to make it a certain way. But the minute I let go of that, everything got like everything changed for the better. I was able to be even more successful and spend time with my kids. Like it wasn't the or, it became an and. So it's one of those things that now I get to work with so many women all around the world. And it's not just confined to one space. Like I can be really flexible and really help people in a deep, meaningful way. And honestly, I think I was born to do that always. I just was hiding.
Mm. I love that story. So my question to you is, the moment that you realized you had to let go of this business you had spent half your life building, what was that like for you?
Oh, I was crazy. I like literally had like I was like on like meltdown. Like, and I remember my my husband was like, "But didn't you want to do this bigger thing?" And I was like, "Yes." And I was getting and it was like through him asking me all these questions, he was like, "So couldn't this be like God delivering what you were really supposed to?" Yeah. Yes, it could be. Like it was just like I had to have somebody else say it to me. And then realize that if I was going to be able to make the huge impact and work with, millions of women, that I no longer could be tied to something that took up that much time, because it was then I was going to be sacrificing my family. And I hadn't even realized I had been making those types of choices until like looking back in reflection. You're like, okay, this never could have worked if you would have still had. Anyways, it's just really interesting when you finally let go. And I was laughing because I think I know we've done probably several podcast episodes about this on Beyond Common Business Secrets, but it's one of those things where you're like, oh, so all the things I've wrote about, teach about, preach about, oh, I had to do it again because it's never set it and forget it. So I literally had to walk myself, like take myself by the hand, walk myself back through all the success essentials that had led to every other stage. And the thing is just because you get it in one area, you could totally miss it in another. So
Amen.
that's the humor of it. Like you're just like, it's never done.
So the moment you like, was there ever a moment where you were like, okay, I've processed that I'm actually terrified to let go, but I know that letting go would be better for me. Was there a moment where you had the like, okay, I can let go now? Was there ever that moment for you?
Yeah. And it was pretty fast. It was pretty fast that I was like, when I gave myself the space or permission to imagine it differently, I was like, oh, I'm so excited. And it just like lit everything up. And I was able to realize, I think really quickly, that I was gripping so tight that I had been blocking so much of what big dreams and visions that, I had always had from coming in. So it was like the minute that I let go of that, everything changed and it opened up in a way that was so fast. It was so fast that I was like, "Oh, okay. This is really cool." Like, what was taking you so long?
Well, and it's funny. So I'm in that right now, right? Where I built quite a successful, a lot of different things in my life. I've done a lot of different things, including being a hairdresser, which was so funny because, and mine was when I came into hairdressing, it was, I want to be a healing hands hairdresser. And it happened in a 3-hour meditation hike in the mountains in Colorado. And I was, a real estate agent. I was in grad school for somatic psychology to get my master's. I was like doing all these real things. And so hairdresser in my world was like, you got to be kidding me. And when that divine guidance came in, it was really loud and clear. And at the time I was bartending, I was teaching dance class, I was doing all these things. And on this hike, when it came in, and it was literally like a man out of a megaphone saying, "The healing hands hairdresser." And I was like, seriously, universe, come on. And all these things happened in succession. And on that hike, it said, "You're going to be charging $1,000 an hour." And I was like, um, have you seen my life? I'm like making $15 an hour plus tips, plus here, plus that. I'm like making ends meet, and I'm doing well, but I'm making ends meet.
Yeah.
And in my at that time in my life, $1,000 an hour was like absolutely absurd. And I moved my way into that. But one of the things I always say is there's that moment where we hang on to the idea of being terrified to let go of what we've built because we're afraid. And what we rarely often look at, and you named it, which is really exciting, is when you started to let go, you made space and you opened, and all these things came in. And so we tend to go, "Oh, I'm so terrified to let go of that thing." We rarely put our vision immediately on what we would gain if we let go of it. And I think that's a really important, valuable moment for almost everyone to hear is is yes, you can be terrified of what you built and letting go of that. But when you turn that attention to, wow, I wonder what I could gain. And so we're going to take a commercial break. But when we get back from the break, I want to talk about what you started to gain and what you realized in that process. So hang on tight. We're going to be back with Tracey. So thanks for listening.
OMTimes TV.
Do you trust you? Do you trust your body? What if the key to unlocking the weight, pain, suffering, fear, anxiety, addictions, traumas, and sorrows was already inside of you? Learn to love the skin you are in so you can create the body, business, and life you love. Everyone always says you can't explain what Katherine does, you just have to experience it. From Hollywood actors to New York Times best-selling authors to some of the world's wealthiest and most successful, no two experiences are the same. For private sessions, online courses, live events, and the latest book Jack Canfield calls Game Changer and should be required reading for everyone, go to katherinemcintosh.com. KatherineMcintosh.com.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. OMTimes Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, OMTimes offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an OMTimes magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on OMTimes TV and broadcasting it across the extensive OMTimes radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. OMTimes. Open yourself to the possibilities.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
All right, we are back from the break with the Tracey Watts Cirino. I'm so glad you're here. So we were talking about just this process of that moment where you're like, crap, I have to let go of what I've built, and now I'm about to go for it.
You know what's really interesting? When you were saying that and like recapping what we were talking, I started thinking that the thing that held me in that space for so long was letting people down, right? Like like that was, and then when that started shifting, when I was moving, there's this moment where it felt like you're between two worlds. You're taking a giant leap, right? Like you're taking a giant, so you're between two worlds. And it's interesting because I was like, I knew I had to completely release it or it would pull me back in because it had been part of my life and how I identified for so long. So I raised my prices significantly to like where I would not even consider doing anything like unless it started at $2,500. Okay. Period. And thinking it would be a no from everyone, right? Like that was kind of how I put this sort of like what I call the bumpers on it. And there were people that still wanted me to do it. And so it created a bridge for, financial respect till all of my coaching and teaching and marketing stuff took off. But it was so interesting. I'm like, oh, if I could have done that even years before. So sometimes you don't even realize the leverage and power that you have in what you're doing. And you can still use it as a bridge to get to the next thing that you're supposed to do. And for a while, anybody that knew me and knew that I did that would have a lot to say like, oh my God, but you're so good at that. You can't not do this. Like you're really successful and people are counting on you. And I had to shut that down too. Like I almost had to say like, no, I'm like, this is completely done, not doing it anymore, because that little thread kept kind of making me doubt and second guess my steps in the next direction. So when I completely shut that down, that's when the flood of everything came through.
I love that. And so one thing I'm just going to replay because I love this is that for anyone listening, when you get those intuitive downloads, like charge a ridiculous amount, it's an intuitive download that if you follow it will literally open the doors to your life, will literally change your life. But here's how you know it's an intuitive download is it will feel absolutely ridiculous. And right after the intuitive download, all the reasons why you shouldn't do it will start to creep in. And that's like, I love that you're sharing that because you didn't listen to, at least you listened to those doubts, but you didn't let those doubts determine your actions. You actually went the opposite direction. And that's huge.
And it does feel like you're dragging a boulder up a mountain. It really it will feel like that. But when you are aligned and with knowing that you're making a bigger difference. Like for me, my why is so big. Like I don't want there to ever be another woman ever that has to cry alone in the I always say in the little doorway between your garage and your laundry room or alone in your closet. I don't want anyone to have to cry alone. I want women everywhere to know there's like support and guidance that can get them to the point that you have both your business of your dreams while still having a life that nourishes your soul. Like you don't have to sacrifice one or the other because it's no longer the way it needs to be. So knowing that ultimately like that's why I have been called to help, it's like you can't hide.
Yeah. And the helper is really this like desire to empower, right?
Yeah.
And I think what you named, which is really important, is that when we are on this path to empower others to live their best life or to reach whatever they're going for, we have to learn how to fire our people pleaser. Because your people pleaser that wanted to stay connected to the current group of people that you were helping and making a difference, you knew that you could stay there, but your heart was like called to a bigger calling. And that can be terrifying for all of us. It's never an easy moment, but it actually gets worse when we force ourselves to stay in that moment thinking like, no, I'm making a difference, so I'm going to stay here, but yet you're called to this other thing. So I'm just so grateful that you're sharing with us that journey that you personally had to go from I can imagine a comfortable living, a successful living, where you were viewed as extremely successful. You went out of the box. You did something different than no one in the industry was doing in the hairdressing industry. And then to leave that all behind and go, okay, I guess I'm going to do something. I'm going to fire myself from my own job I built and go somewhere else. So I'm wondering if you could just say a little bit more, because it's a beautiful share and a beautiful process.
Yeah, it was kind of like firing yourself. That is funny to put it that way, actually.
You have to completely
Yeah, reinvent.
reinvent who you are, but you have to be willing to let go of the story of success that you
Yeah,
had, not
exactly.
knowing if you'll be successful.
Right. And that's like the other thing too, that there's like pieces of, that you have to be willing to start over and look at your new thing in a way that's like, okay, well, I'm going to do whatever it takes because, people need to hear this. And that sometimes can be really scary because you're like, oh, wait, I don't have 20 years of successful experience in one thing. The only thing that, thank goodness, is that years before I ever opened my salon, and we had been blessed the same year I sold the salon, we were on the cover of Salon Today magazine as one of the top 200 salons in all of North America. And we sold it, and people are like, wait, what? And it's just like the journey of 1,000 miles. Like, so many things had to line up intricately to make it happen. Like, we had some of our key team members um had been making plans to move out of state. We had people that were on like baby number 4, and like so many things lined up to make it where, wait a minute, my level of responsibility was changing. And do we want to grow and do what we've always done again? Or do I want to release it and start something completely new? And that's the thing. Like, when everyone around you thinks you're insane, Katherine, you're absolutely right. That's usually when it is an intuitive download. And I can't explain it except for, I think I wrote about this in Dear Younger Self, where whenever anyone challenges that within me, like, oh, you can't do that, I'm like, you'll see.
Yeah.
You'll see. And sometimes the you'll see is to yourself, even, right? Like, okay, like, this is like insane. Okay. Like, I have no idea why, but we're going to do this. And that's the thing. There are so many people that when they listen to what they've been called to do, they come alive. Everything gets easier. Like, you create more time freedom, more revenue, more everything when we trust it. But it is scary in the middle. It is like that, like, oh, I'm between two worlds.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. So in that process of you had built the salon and now you're taking a leap of faith into coaching and doing a whole bunch of other stuff, which I'd love for you to talk about what's coming up next. But that moment when you were doing that, were there any of the principles that you were teaching that you had to let go of? So, a two-part question. And were there any of the principles that may or may not have been there that you actually adopted or realized needed to be sort of mainstream that you might not have been giving as much attention to?
So That is a great question. So I would answer it like in the two parts. So I was unaware that I was not listening to my internal guidance. Like I was teaching people how to be present, but really doubling down on being present when it comes to what your clients' needs are and what everybody else's needs are. And I had been omitting myself from the equation. And I was just not, I had blinders about this. So that was something that when I stepped back and came into awareness of that, it was like, oh, okay. Once that shifted, right? That is when the principle of really putting yourself first and taking care of yourself, that when I started doing that, and I came at it kind of in a funny way, I would say. I came at the taking care of yourself as like, you're never going to want to do it. You might not never even like it, but you, for this time and space of where I had little kids, business was busy. The only me time I was going to get was in the morning before anything else happened. And I have by nature never been a morning person. I was a chronic snoozer for years. But when I made the decision to say, you know what, you're not going to like it, but you have to do it. And there's just no exception. When I did that, that changed everything to where I started becoming present to the things I wasn't aware of. And if I had not taken the time to put myself first in my care, I don't know that I would have received all the downloads and brought myself through all the steps of what, what was coming through.
That I hope people are listening, because that is huge, is that when we make the demand, the choice, you can't go backwards to self-care, it makes you more present to your life, which makes you more present to your intuition, which changes your life. So I hope people who are out there really take home, like, this self-care is essential into growing you, into growing your life, and into making your dreams come true. So, is there any self-care that you're doing right now that you're super like excited about, that you're lit up about, that's making an impact, that you're surprised on?
Yes, so I have been doing my morning routine for, I would say, almost 7 years now. And it still surprises me that I've made it a day. It just really does. But about 3.5 years ago, my husband and I were and the kids, we were on vacation and we were walking up and down the beach. And my husband said, it's so interesting that we could walk miles on vacation, but when we get home, it's like we can never fit it in. And I presented my case of what had been working for me, and I said, well, if you say, okay, we're going to walk, and you set a specific time, you commit to it, rain, shine, snow, whatever, don't take the weekends off. It's like it's a 12-month commitment and you just do it. Would you be willing to do that experiment? And he said, yeah. And it was like this thing we talked about, like when we get home from vacation, you can't take Sunday to sleep in and think we're going to start Monday. We have to start exactly when we get home. And we've done that. And it's so funny. We literally on Saturday morning, it was a hailstorm here. And I was like, babe, are you ready for our romantic rain walk? We are under the umbrella. So it's hilarious. Like, of course you don't love getting pelted with hail. However, it has made it that we put our relationship first. And at this time when, business is busy, kids are busy, they have a lot of demands. This is like the time that we can carve out. So I get up earlier, do my meditation, my journaling, and then he gets up 6:30. We go on a walk every day. And it's one of those things, like, we still have what our kids say, it's when we speak Italian. It's just we're passionate people. So we'll have like a healthy debate. Like, this is what I believe. So that stuff still comes up, but it's always with more love, patience, and understanding. It's never like the fiery stuff. So it definitely has been, I think, the best thing we've ever done in our marriage. And we've been married almost 18 years.
Wow. Well, I was going to say, so for 3.5 years, you've been walking every day with
Yeah.
your husband.
Yes.
That
Now, when I travel, I call him and say, "Are you getting up today?" He's like, "No." So like, I will say that I still am. And then my friends that I travel with are like, "Are you going to make me walk? Because I need you to make me walk." So I think sometimes my friends, want me to go on more of the women's retreats and collaborate with them because they know I'm going to make them walk.
I love that. Well, and I can only imagine 3.5 years, how much that has strengthened your relationship. I always tell people, like, especially the people like, I hate moving my body. I'm like, it's not about your weight, your height, your like literally moving your body in any form, and most people can walk. Is you're literally physically changing the vibration of your body. You're physically like recalibrating your cells. You're detoxifying things that are stuck in your body that you don't even know. And then combine that with talking with your partner in those moments when you're releasing. I can only imagine how healing and invigorating and enlivening. Yeah, that is. So that's really cool.
Yeah. I have a few friends that like text me randomly. They're like, we made it to day 14. My husband agreed. So it's like, I feel like in some small way, we're starting a movement for married people to do these little walks.
That's amazing. We could add it to your repertoire of things to add.
This one's just fun, right? And the
That's
kids are like,
awesome.
can we, like, sometimes the kids are like, can we go? Rarely will they get up, but it's like,
Well,
it's funny.
what a great example for
Yeah.
them for the future. So I'd love for you to share with us like what you're creating now and what you're most excited with and what's been working and what's your bigger dream that you've had to sort of get comfortable with
Well,
playing with.
Well, it's interesting because Katherine, from what you and I have talked about, you've had this happen as well because of the level of deep work that we do to really create a growth container of moving beyond what people think is possible and then balancing it out with actual tools and resources that really get it going. Like, I always refer back to like in Disney, the princesses didn't just get sent out, when the fairy godmother waved the wand, they didn't just get sent out, go find Prince Charming. They gave them some tools, right? Like, so it's a little bit of magic, but a little bit strategy. And the thing that I had kept saying, oh yeah, people know, they know. Like whenever I find myself doing that, like you think people know, then you're like, oh no, so I'm so excited. We are launching a new program that's like a deeper dive, and it's called Beyond Common Women in Business, like Essentials. So I'm just taking 10 women through the process of getting clear on their messaging to step into their power and really set up the systems and strategies that allow them to thrive. Because if you have a business, it has to be profitable and it has to be in alignment with what feels right for you. And when any of that is off, that is when people get stuck on this hamster wheel of spinning and spinning. So we are walking people through this so that they can set up profitable businesses that get them off that human hamster wheel.
I love that. Well, and I actually heard this in one of your podcasts because I kind of like, downloaded a bunch and was listening to them. I heard you say, and I'm going to lose my train of thought. Oh, what was it? Crap. it was something really cool that you had said about business and success and getting, it's about like, you have to be willing to let people help you. So I think one thing that's really scary for a lot of people is, they look at their bank accounts, they look at their resources, they're like, oh my gosh, this is my passion, but I've never done this before. And then they try and do it all themselves. And I know we both have probably been there on different levels and at different times, but that importance of, even if it's just a house cleaner, right? To bring someone else in to do something for you that you're like, well, I do it better, or I can do it myself. What was that process for you like, to let other people do things that maybe initially you were like, well, I could do it better? How did you let that come into your life to help your businesses grow?
I love that you asked that. So a lot of this happens to be like from a place of control, right? And our ego can get in the way of us controlling. So oftentimes it is, you have to create space to allow and invite in people to help, because so often we'll get stuck in a loop, like nobody can do it, or nobody wants to do it, nobody wants to help me. And this, we have to remove this story. And the more that you realize that our job is just to like share what we know and then pass it to the next person so that we can keep moving forward. We just have to keep moving forward. That has been a lifelong journey, because I struggled in the beginning of when I first started my business, because I thought I had to do everything myself. Like it was like frowned upon to have a cleaner, someone do your grocery shopping, like someone help with your kid, until you realize that, like, wait a minute, if I'm going to be good at any of this, I have to get really clear on where I want to be really good. So I'm really clear on where I want to show up for my kids in a quality way, and where I want to show up in my business in a way that makes a big impact. And everything else I outsource, even if in some degree I think I can do it better. I have faith and appreciation that after one or two times, Sarah's going to kill it and she's going to do it so much better than me.
Yeah. Well, and it's also like, it's such a beautiful gift to allow someone to help you, because it helps them awaken to their own gifts. And it's just this beautiful process. So we only have a few more minutes left, and I want to make sure people can find you. If you are on social media, if you're watching this, listening to it, wherever you are, please go ahead and share this episode with anyone that you think, because I think Tracey's story and what she's offering the world is really impactful. We do have the link directly to your website. So to her website, anywhere where you find this show. But Tracey, is there any more, like, where else can people find you, connect with you? And then what's your course called, and how can they find out more info about that if you've just piqued their interest?
So the best way to hang out with us is on Facebook. We have a Facebook group that is like a supportive women in business. So it's called Beyond Common Supportive Women in Business. You can find us that way. That's the best way, because you can see the level of support and that type of thing. And then reach out. Yeah, reach out. I'm doing some special intake interviews for the people that I'm putting through in the 10. So I would say find us on Facebook and then message me. That's the best way.
Awesome. And go buy one of her books. The two that really are speaking to me right now are the Beyond Common, and what was it? Something to Herself, Notes to Herself.
Oh, Dear Younger Self. Yeah.
Dear
you will
Younger
love that.
Self,
Yeah. Dear Younger
right?
Self. Yeah.
So go check out all of her books, go to her website, and a lot of your social media is on your website. So if you're like, wait, what did she say? Go to her website. You guys will be able to find anything. So Tracey, is there anything else that you'd like to say or share to anyone who is in that journey and looking for what's next? Or maybe they're insecure, whatever it is. Yeah.
I would say that the first thing you need to do is surround yourself with people that support you and create space for that dream vision, no matter how big, no matter how crazy, and limit, if not completely remove, all people that do not support your dream right now. It's not forever, it's just right now. And my favorite saying that I actually took from Jack Canfield and Patty Aubrey is, it's not against you, it's for me. And I find anytime I have to do a really deep thing like that, I will say that again and again. And then, because I put humor on everything, I say sense is not common. No matter what your mom told you, sense is not common. And that's how Beyond Common was born. So you can't expect people to have any sense. So just know that it's okay. You can laugh about it. And it's okay. That's how we get to the next phase.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, I'm so grateful to have had you on. We probably could have talked for several more hours. And I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. And, please, people, find Tracey. Please share this interview. Please get on social media. And we're so grateful to have you here. So, Tracey, thanks for being a part of the show. And I can't wait to watch what you do next.
Thank you so much, Katherine. Yes, everyone, listen to the show. You're amazing. And I am so grateful. Thank you so much for having me.
So welcome.
Katherine is not a medical practitioner nor a licensed therapist. She has strong opinions and will express them, and truly believes that you are your best advocate for any and every area of your life. If you need medical advice, please consult your physician.